Hi guys, this is Rudy for Bester Investor or Mr. Oxy. What we're going to do today on Wednesday, September the 2nd, is take a look at a slight preview of OXY's Q3 earnings and then some more. So at the end of this video, I've included a couple of fun facts which might be of interest to you, and I'm going to end it off with a joke which is going to offend all my green energy friends, but just so be it. So let's see where we go and take a look at what's coming up for OXY in Q3. So the first site that I went to is TipRanks. You can join TipRanks for free. You're not going to get the pro version unless you pay them money, but you can certainly get into a whole lot of interesting ticker symbols and information that you might want to take a look at. And in this particular case, what we're looking at is TipRanks for November the 2nd reporting date, which would obviously be Q3 for OXY when they report the period ending September 2020. We have a consensus EPS, earnings per share forecast of negative 65 cents, which is a little different from the last quarter when they reported $1.76 negative. And of course, we can take a look at last year's earnings per share for the same period, which was positive 11 cents. Currently, the analyst consensus is hold based on 16 analyst ratings. This is as of today. And they have an analyst target price of $17.14, which is approximately a 36% upside from where OXY is trading today at around $12, as it is racing to try and see if it can get to zero. I'm just kidding. But anyway, so currently we're at around $12 and a few cents, and the analyst target pricing consensus is approximately $17.14. TipRanks also says, in order to explain the $17.14, that the analysts have a high of $33 and a low of $8, which gives you the average of $17.14. How did we arrive there? Well, 3 of them are saying buy, 9 of them are saying hold, and 4 of them are saying sell. And if you average them all out, they arrive at $17.14 according to TipRanks. If we look at NASDAQ and we look at the earnings per share, so what we have here on the left-hand side of the screen is the actual estimated in dark blue compared with the reported in light blue. So we can see there were some mixed periods where the estimated earnings was whatever and OXY underperformed. And then the last quarter which was reported was Q2 of 2020, and we all obviously know what happened there. So here's the estimate that we just talked about a minute ago. And if you look at the graph, and really if you like looking at graphs, then you can see that the analyst consensus is kind of trending in this direction, which most ordinary, logical, rational people would say is a slight upward trajectory over the next few quarters. And we can see this goes from Q4 2020 through to Q2 2021. So if you save this presentation, or if you well, obviously I'm not going to delete it from YouTube, so you'll be able to find it again, but we'll be able to see whether the analysts managed to predict correctly, or whether Occidental over or underperforms based on the analyst expectations. Zacks provides you with an ABR, which is an average broker recommendation. The current ABR is 3 out of 5, so that's sort of, as a general rule, a hold consensus. And the number of recommendations in the average broker recommendation is 20, so they have a slightly larger pool of analysts that they're following compared with TipRanks that we just looked at a minute ago. Here's an interesting pickup. Average target price $20.05. Underneath my red scribble here, you might be able to make out that the analysts are saying that the long-term growth rate is approximately 5.5%, which is obviously compounded, which is okay, not great, but it's all right. And then once again, here's your average quarter EPS estimate. So for Q3 of 2020, the 20 analysts covered on Zacks offers an analyst consensus of negative 65 cents earnings per share for Q3 2020. If we look at the yearly earnings forecast, so over here we have a 3-year period, 2020, 21, and 22. And if you look at it horizontally, then you can see the number of estimates is 9, and there have been 3 revisions up and 6 revisions down. However, my preference is to actually look at the revisions vertically. So we have 9 revisions, and for the most immediate near term, 3 are revising up, and then 7, and then 2. Whereas if you look at the down revisions for the same period, 6, 2, 0. So in other words, right now, in the most recent and current quarters that we are following Occidental in, you have 3 up revisions and 6 down. But then it swings and it becomes 7 up revisions and 2 down, and then 2 up revisions and 0 down for people who are bold enough to project all the way through to 2022. In my opinion, this is mostly positive. So we'll see where that goes going forward, because obviously 2022 is a lifetime away when you are thinking of things like coronavirus impact and energy prices ebbing and flowing and so on. Similarly, for the quarterly earnings forecast, we have a number of estimates here. Immediately in the near term, we have 8, and then as you go forward in the future, all the way through to September 2021, the number drops from 8 to approximately 5. But if we look vertically, once again, in this trajectory, we can see that there are 3 upwards revisions in the nearest term versus 5 down, but then over time it becomes the other way around. It swings and we have 4 upward revisions and 0 of them down. So once again, this kind of looks positive. A stock analyst overview. This is also from TipRanks. So very briefly here, the analyst rating on, in general, the consensus hold with a target price of $17.14, as we just said. The blogger opinions, this is a new one for me, mostly bullish, 70% bullish. Hedge fund activity decreased over the last quarter. There's a negative trend here. We're going to look at that one in a minute in a little bit more detail. The TipRanks investors overwhelmingly negative. The new sentiment is very bearish. We know that. Everybody is beating Oxy down, and the technicals obviously are negative as well, and we know that too. The primary reasons for this, although many people like to focus on the acquisition of Anadarko last year in August, so we're a year post the Anadarko acquisition, the primary culprits in terms of driving Oxy down, in addition to some operational mismanagement in terms of profitability, are the coronavirus, which caused an enormous lack of demand, and obviously the crashing oil price, especially in Q2 of 2020. Those 2 factors combined is why we have Oxy at $12 today. So if we can reverse the demand factor, which coronavirus and the dissipation of positive tests and the decline in the number of people who are dying from the coronavirus, and all those good things come into play, then we should get some positivity as the impact on the stock price is reversed. The stock analysis overview specific to hedge funds, because a minute ago I said that has been decreasing. So this squiggly line over here is Occidental stock price, and then the blue line is hedge fund investments. So yes, you can say quarter to quarter it's decreased, but really if you look at where the hedge funds are today in terms of their investment in Occidental compared to where they were a year ago or even more than a year ago, hedge funds were not climbing into Oxy at all. Whereas today, the hedge funds are actually relatively invested in Occidental, I mean, this is a huge uptick. So even though it's declined quarter over quarter, there are a lot of hedge funds putting a lot of money into Occidental. So maybe some of the smart guys know a lot of stuff that I don't know. But anyway, they're getting into Oxy and they're long. And a number of people, including some of our followers on this channel, are long. So this is all good for me. Fun fact. So I said I'm going to look at Oxy here. The Bearish Predictions, you know, it's like Warren Buffett sold 100% of his Occidental common. We know this is not true. I mean, he was just cashing out his quarterly dividend. So I'm not to worry about these guys. But interesting over here, Occidental Petroleum looks like bargain selling at this current price for oil stocks to buy for the long term. And this last one you can't see because it's hidden behind my thumbnail. But Occidental could be worth $25. This particular guy said, I have no idea who these people are, but overall, the blogger sentiment is overwhelmingly bullish. So the analysts are overwhelmingly negative, and the bloggers and ordinary people, perhaps like you and I watching this video right now, are actually relatively bullish, even if it is you know, medium term over a 3 or 5 year term or period. You know, there are a lot of people who are saying Occidental is undervalued, it's super cheap, you should buy it. Another fun fact, for TipRanks, 2.1% of all their portfolios hold Oxy, and of those portfolios, they have approximately 5% of their portfolio allocated to Occidental Petroleum. The changes in the portfolio, inconsequential. 0.1% down. It is negative, but it's 0.1% down in the last 7 or 30 days. Another fun fact, the last one. Who invests in Occidental Petroleum? So if you had asked me prior to seeing this particular slide, which I saw on TipRanks as well, whether millennials are investing in fossil fuels, I would have said not at all. However, on TipRanks, approximately 30% of Oxy holders are under the age of 35. Almost half of the TipRanks tens of thousands and thousands of followers are in the age range 35 to 55. And then if you look at some of the older dudes, you know, like me and Warren Buffett and Carl Icahn or whatever, they are sort of 55 or thereabouts. So an interesting mix. Obviously, the majority of people sort of 35 to 55, but I'm surprised that 30% of millennials are invested in Occidental. To close off the presentation, I thought I'll leave you with this little slide, and I'll just pause for a second so that you can read it. I don't have anything against people who are into green energy. I think it's really cool, especially when I look at what super geniuses like Elon Musk has managed to do with electric cars. I think green energy is kind of cool. I like the fact that it's also kind of clean. To be fair, so is natural gas and nuclear energy. But the whole sort of thesis against fossil fuels is, in my mind, slightly overblown, and might be a few generations before we actually get some kind of a correction on this at all, if at all. If you consider the fact that electric vehicles is only a very small portion of the cars, number of cars on the road, and then coupled with that, industry and shipping and airline and rail, which is predominantly driven by the so-called fossil fuels, home heating and cooling, etc. I mean, the entire market and population and all the developing countries, China, Africa, etc., Asian countries that are growing, require fossil fuels. So I'm not too worried about the impact of green on fossil fuels, but I do appreciate the fact that we all need to be very mindful of being in an environment where we make sure that we leave the best possible scenario for our children and grandchildren as we go forward. So on that note, I'm signing off. This is Rudy. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.